Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to You Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling, our weekly look at the Miami Hurricanes from the bettor's perspective. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by Lee Sterling himself of ParamountSports.com, and we'll get that number up there on the screen so that when you're enamored by all of the wisdom that you get from Lee during the show, you could sign up for his service and make all kinds of money, like all of his clients did this past weekend. Go ahead, Lee. Brag to us. How did it go last weekend?
Great weekend. Miami won. We had them. That was one of our plays. And went 11-3 for our clients. So it was a great week. And I rate my games from 10 to 50 units. And we hit our first 40 to 50 unit play of the year, a 45 unit playing the NFL. And now 62-20 going back 15 years on our 40 to 50 unit plays. So last week was a spectacular week. It was so good, Gary. I was 10-3 going into Monday night, and I had the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers goes down, and I somehow won that game. When you're going great, you win those games, Gary. When things are going to you-know-what, the guy gets injured the first play, and you lose by 40 points. So just one of those weeks, and it was a lot of fun. I was even at the game, and I didn't run into you. I usually run into you in basketball and football games when I go. Didn't run into you, but saw a lot of old faces and was really happy with Miami's performance.
Well, I was there, obviously, and man, it was nice to see the Miami Hurricanes play a quality ball game against a real opponent. You know, we haven't seen too much of that in the last few years, and it was a sizable move forward for the program, I thought, Lee.
Yeah. You know, you lose that game and you got 35,000 at each game. You win it, and now they should be 5-0, you know, going into the meat of the schedule, the North Carolina, Clemson, little daily double there. But, you know, it's going to be fun, and you see the progress. You see kids are getting coached up. You see kids are improving. I like the schemes of both the offensive and defensive coordinators. And I think they understand their players and putting them in positions to perform well. And, I mean, there weren't many bad performances. I mean, we didn't run the ball real well, but let's give Texas A&M some credit. They got 4 and 5 stars. They got like 8, 9 guys on that defensive line that could have gone anywhere in the country. They have a quarterback that had not thrown an interception in his 5 previous games. One, you know, he had a receiver fall down, but the other was a great play. You saw Davis, the transfer cornerback from St. Thomas, an incredible hit and forces a fumble, and that was a big defining moment. We scored on a kick return. Can't remember the last time that happened, with some really good blocking. I will say this, and I'll tell you this whether we win or lose. Officiating by the SEC crew was horseshit. I mean, horrible. Complete dog crap. There was
on purpose too. You know, it was on purpose.
Of course. So I had a friend who was sending me clips during the game, and I went back and watched the game the next day. There was literally 8 to 10 times we had defensive linemen being held, and we're not talking about, you know, you're holding, you know, the jersey inside. Guys are making have look like free passes to the quarterback, and they're grabbing them and holding them. Taking them down. It was disgusting. I mean, there were some phantom calls called on us on top of that. You know what? Those guys should be in jail. It was so bad.
So Miami wins by 15. Yeah. Probably should have won by 25. If you, right. You know, they were just, I mean, significantly better than Texas A&M. Right. Give them the world of credit. And, you know, of course, everybody's starting to look ahead. You just did it yourself. You said they should be 5-0. We'll talk about Temple in detail next week, but have you watched Temple at all?
No, not
have you
yet.
Watched,
They're one of the few teams I haven't watched.
Have you watched Georgia Tech at all?
Yeah, I have watched Georgia Tech, watched their game. Yeah. So I've watched, I think, 123 of the 133 teams. And I actually watched Bethune-Cookman. So can always check out Miami's future opponent. And here's what I saw. So we beat them last year 70-13. They went 2-9. They played Memphis. And I'm not going to watch games against other FCS opponents. Memphis, pretty good, a lot of skill level, especially on offense. Their 2 touchdowns, Gary, go watch the tape, are a deflected pass, defensive lineman, number 17, bats it, turns around and catches it and runs for a touchdown. Great run. He weaves in and out, 2 guys chasing him. And then they had a fumble. Memphis has a horrible backup quarterback. Remember this. If Memphis loses Hennigan, their starting quarterback, their backup, number 21, is horrible. Bet against Memphis every single game. Just blind bet against them. He is that bad. Usually Memphis has had like good quarterbacks in the system. They don't have a backup. But he fumbles a handoff. They return it for a touchdown. Both their touchdowns were defensive scores. Memphis was so much better. They should have won the game like 80-0. The final of 56-14 was deceiving. So tough to find a line. Most places, the line's 53 on this game. They have this quarterback, Simmons, that runs around a little bit. I'm just going to say you can't bet the game. I mean,
53. Wow.
I mean, 53, and I can't take Bethune-Cookman. They're that bad. But Miami's going to rest a lot of players. This is a game we should play a lot of players. If we don't score every single time, there's either a penalty or numerous missed blocks. That's the only way that Bethune-Cookman should be able to stop.
Yeah, I hate these games, man. I wish they would stop. I wish they would stop scheduling these games, Lee. Right. I mean, I look at that Miami-Ohio game, and I know Miami-Ohio's not great, but they're at least somewhat competitive, and you get something out of the game. And I think that had something to do with how good Miami was against Texas A&M. They had gotten a game against at least an opponent that can show up and stand still and, isn't just a blocking dummy there. And they were well-oiled to go, play Texas A&M. I don't know what you're going to get out of Bethune-Cookman. I don't care who plays. I don't care if the freshmen play. They're not getting anything out of this game.
Zero. You should play. You know what? They should play like Iowa and Iowa State play teams like Northern Iowa, South Dakota. Play someone close. Play Georgia Southern. Play South Florida. Play FAU. Play FIU. In the last couple of years, they've done a little more of that. But playing FCS opponents, unless they're North Dakota State, unless they're teams that are ranked in the top 10 there, it's a waste of time. This is a really bad team. Central High School might be better than Bethune-Cookman.
So are people, I mentioned Temple. You haven't watched them yet, but you have watched Georgia Tech. Is everybody, and I say everybody because everybody's doing this, getting ahead of themselves, just penciling in the W's, like for say the Georgia Tech game coming down here to Hard Rock?
Oh, I think so. I mean, they're much better than even Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, I mean, they have the transfer of A&M quarterback from last year that's playing. They're not at Miami's level. If we lose that game, it's a complete failure. I mean, we should be
got it at home, but you got to play. Like you're going to have to play. Yeah.
I mean, they should be favored by 24 to 28 points. Should be. And we should win minimum by 3 touchdowns. We're just that much better. So I hate to get away and get ahead of ourselves, but let's be real. I mean,
we're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Right. We'll talk about each game. But it's fun. I mean, we finally won a big game, Gary. We finally won a big game.
I know. It's incredible.
It wasn't a fluke. We were the better team.
And I admit I am looking forward already to the trip to North Carolina in 3 weeks. I really am. I'm excited for that game. But North Carolina, and we'll talk about this next week. They got to go to Pittsburgh next week.
Right.
It's not going to be that's not going to be an easy out. I'm not sure, and you're going to tell us next week. I'm not sure. I wouldn't pick Pittsburgh in that game, so we'll see. Right. We'll talk more about it next week. But anyway, all right. So Miami minus 53. Lee doesn't like the game from a betting standpoint. If you have to make a bet, you probably got to take. You got to take the Hurricanes.
Yeah, $1. I'd put whatever the least amount is.
Whatever the minimum is
on your app. I mean, and I don't know if anyone saw this. So. Did you see the news? It looks like there's going to be legal sports betting in Florida starting up probably in the next week or two. So that's going to be available. So, yeah.
I'll be
so
I'll be calling 1-800.
You'll see everyone on their app.
I'll be calling 1-800-400-9741, Lee. I want to get in on that 8-3. What was it? 11-3 or 8?
11-3. 11-3 week.
11-3. Yeah. I'd like to get in on that action there and make a little money. All right, couple of games I wanted to ask you about. The first one, everyone's thinking about Florida State. Obviously, for obvious reasons. It's going to be a focal point of the Miami fan base the entire season. They go at Boston College this weekend, and Boston College doesn't look so great, and that program seems to have fallen back a little bit. They lost their quarterback to the transfer portal. Florida State is a 27-point favorite, Lee, and there's going to be some lines this year with Florida State that are going to be too big, in my opinion. I mean, they're good. I don't think they're as good as people think they are. And it had a few things gone differently in that LSU game in the first half. The result might have been different, but they won the game. Give them credit. They played a great second half. Minus 27 at Boston College. What do you think?
Bet it early if you like Boston College, because weather. That could be horrible. I mean, we could see winds, heavy rains, and, weather is an equalizer. You also mentioned a good point. When you play top 5 teams, you're normally going to have to give an extra field goal, just the right to bet a top, 5 team. So it's like the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. You want to bet them, you're going to have to pay a premium. I do think that Boston College is down, but they have a quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, transfer kid. I think he's decent. I think he's okay. He can run around and make some plays happen. Now, a lot of people look and say, oh, they lost to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois was one of the top 3 teams in the MAC. Think they were getting things, together. Then they played Holy Cross. You're like, Holy Cross, they must be terrible. Well, Holy Cross was 12-0 last year. They were actually ranked 5 in FCS this year. They got some players. So
who won that game?
That was a game. I think they're going to be up for this game, Boston College, and Florida State might be peeking ahead to Clemson next week. I know Florida State's actually played better on the road. This is crazy. People think of home field advantage. Well, a lot of teams bond on the road. It really is not much of an advantage anymore, except for some illegal, formations, some legal procedures, things like that. They're 8-0 against the spread is Florida State, straight up and against the spread last 8 games. But I think 27 is a lot. I think the line might close at like 24.5, 25 because of the weather. That's what it looks like, at the time of this taping. And FSU's wide receiver position dinged up. They got 3 guys that may not play here. They're going to win the game, something like 42-17. But I'll take Boston College in the 27.
Take the 27.
Yeah.
All right, and then a much bigger game and more interesting game. Tennessee is a touchdown favorite going into Florida. What happens there?
So Florida was horrible week 1, absolutely terrible. But they had some horrible field position, playing in a tough place, Utah, to consider one of the top 10 toughest places to play. You're playing in altitude. They had a horrible starting field position. Graham Mertz, his first game. You don't want to have a transfer quarterback starting on the road in a place like that. They were penalized 9 times. I thought that they weren't disciplined in that game. Just getting to know each other. And not that this is an incredible Utah team, but just feel that there's going to be a different feel to this game. Florida's actually dominated the series. They've won 16 of the last 18. They did lose last year, 38-33. But in that game, Richardson had 20 incompletions. Hendon Hooker, who I thought was going to win the Heisman, he was the best player college football till he got hurt, only had 6 incompletions. He was on the money. But Florida hung in there. I think they're going to be able to run some. They got 2 decent running backs. I think Tennessee is good, but their receivers aren't great. I mean, they had a bunch of drops in their game last week. So, Dog, 14-3 against the spread in Gator games of late here. I think Florida's going to find a way to win this game here. I don't think Joe Milton is anything special. I think he's good, but not even close to Hendon Hooker. And I like Florida here. I think they pull it off at home, 31-27. Wow.
So Florida getting 7, a hot home underdog, according to Lee Sterling.
Yep.
Run to the windows now, everybody. That's about as good a deal as you can get. Imagine you can even like tease that up to 13 and you'll feel real good.
I rarely tease, Gary, college games because the points are cheap. You know, you see these 56-35 scores, 62-21, 48-46. Whereas in the NFL, more, 27-24, 24-20 games. So points, are really cheap in college football.
All right, Lee. Well, I'd like to say this is a big week, but it's not. But the Canes should obviously cruise through this one. And then we'll be back next week, and you're going to have to watch a Temple game.
I will. Trust me, I will. I'll watch all their games.
Between now and next week, because we're gonna need to know which side to line up on in that one, especially if the Seminoles get that sports betting app turned on in time for Miami Temple, which is not out of the question. Nope. It might just show up one day. So that's going to do it for You Bet CaneSport for this week. You see the number down below, ParamountSports.com, 1-800-400-9741. Any specials this week, Lee?
Yeah, so if you're already on for the season, you're happy, you're all set. I lowered the price on the season price, $300. You can get the entire season through the Super Bowl, college, NFL, 44 bowl games, NFL playoffs. In Super Bowl, just $9.97. Use coupon code SAVE300. Just lowered that price. And if you've never been with me before, for some reason, dropped off, got busy the first couple of weeks, getting kids in school, tending to other matters, we have what's called the Baker's Dozen. You get 13 games Saturday and Sunday, just $97. Whenever you purchase it, a window pops open with all 13 games, so you don't have to call me back Saturday or Sunday morning. Baker's Dozen, 13 games, $97, ParamountSports.com.
All right, everybody, get in on the action. And Lee, we will talk to you next week. And thanks for watching, everybody.